Hello, I'm Dr. Angie McCartney.
And I'm Ruth McCartney.
Welcome to Teaflix,
where each episode's intimate conversation features a fascinating guest across the spectrum of Beatles world, pop culture, Grammy winners, the music industry, chefs, producers, music stars, actors, and more. So bottoms up and join us as they spill the tea on Teaflix. Dun, dun, dun. It says we're live again.
Oh, one more time.
Shall I pinch you to make sure?
I'm never sure. Every morning I think, am I here or is this a meme?
Is this the real life or is this fantasy? Exactly. Well, today we are absolutely thrilled to have on Teaflix Tuesday as our very special guest, Billy Amendola. He is one of the most respected musicians and industry leaders in the music business. He's a New York-based studio drummer, songwriter, producer, podcast host, celebrity interviewer, mentor, and advisor. And he was a founding member of the late-seventies band Mantus, which released 2 albums, scored 3 Billboard top 10 dance singles, and toured across US, Canada, and Europe. For 25 years, Billy was associated with Modern Drummer magazine before he left in 2022, after which he hosted 94 episodes of his own Billy's Bubble podcast. So he's an old hand at this. With the Drum Channel. He's a pioneer in electronic programming and hybrid drumming from the mid-'70s through the '90s. He recorded on countless albums, TV commercials, soundtracks, and remixes. In 1987, Billy's hybrid sound helped shape Debbie Gibson's debut album, Out of the Blue, which spawned global hits including Only in My Dreams and Shake Your Love. Billy's also performed with Ringo Starr's All-Star Band and regularly attends Starr's annual Peace and Love birthday celebrations. Beyond performing, he served on the advisory boards of the Sessions Panel, Music Will, formerly Little Kids Rock, and the Raven Drum Foundation, co-founded by Def Leppard's Rick Allen and his wife, singer-songwriter Lauren Monroe. These organizations promote music and education and support veterans and first responders. With over 50 years in the industry, which you won't believe when you see his pretty face, Billy brings both creative and business expertise. He's an active social media influencer, sought after for product reviews and mentoring, and currently contributes video and TV interviews for Rock Cellar magazine. Inspired by seeing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show in '64, Billy began formal drum lessons and received his first drum kit from his grandparents, a spark that launched a lifetime in music. He's now the host of the Drum Channel's podcast, Billy's Bubble. Welcome, Billy Amendola.
Wow.
Hello, Billy.
What a
How
pleasure
about
to
that then?
So nice to see you. What a pleasure to be here. I think I have to take you with me everywhere I go. You make me sound so important.
Well, you are.
Well, I'm the president of your fan club, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I might jostle you for that, but I think May Pang might win. I think she's known Billy longer than us.
Yeah, May is a very, very good friend and a fan of the show. And
yes.
That whole Beatles circle is
It's great, isn't it?
very tight-knit, but once you're in that circle, it's like you can't get out. It's like Hotel California.
That's right. Yeah, you can never leave.
Exactly.
So tell me.
Winding back to the beginning.
Okay, yeah. Now, by the age of 14, you were already playing professionally, I read. You started a beautiful band called Uncle Sam with friends. And that band evolved through several lineups and names, including Gypsy. And in 1976, you became Mantus. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, I was fortunately always the youngest of the crowd. So it's a great experience to be young like that, because as we get older, you realize who you grow up with is very, very important in developing your life. So thankfully for me, a lot of my friends from going back to when I was 14 are still very active in my life. A lot of the same players. I only had one sibling and he passed away young. And these, growing up with my fellow musicians, we were really like a family. It was like having brothers. So I and being the youngest, they taught me a lot without me realizing it at the time, because when you're young, you think you know everything, and
Of course.
But it was great.
You're old, you do too.
Yeah, but it was great. Yeah, Ruth, do you listen to Mom all the time?
Oh, she has to.
I have to, yeah.
Yes, dear. but it's important. And so Uncle Sam started at 14, and my buddy who was older than me, I met Mike Riddle, who's my main guy to this day. When I was 10 and he was 15, and he managed that band. And my lead singer, that was in Mantus, was first in a band with Mike Riddle, and we played block parties and. Back in the day, all the high school dances, and it was great. And then some clubs we played, I used to have to be snuck in, play, and then I'd have to get out.
Of course.
And then Uncle Sam developed to Gypsy, and that was most of the same members until '76 when we got Jimmy Mayer into the band. We had two Jimmys in the band, which confused everyone.
Yeah.
And then we changed the name of the band to Mantus in '76 because dance music was getting so popular, and we were a rock band.
Right.
We were playing Zeppelin and Queen and Uriah Heep and all the English bands, Deep Purple. And then disco was getting so big when we started playing more sophisticated places. They dressed us up in these monkey suits, as we called them, and we started playing Hilton hotels and the Playboy Club and everything, and playing top 40, which 90% was they didn't want to hear rock. They wanted to hear what was on the radio, which mostly was disco. Long story short, we were playing a club in the city, and we got a deal because we were fooling around at 2 o'clock in the morning. Nobody was in the club, and we were fooling around. Instead of playing what we were supposed to be playing, we started playing some funk music. And this gentleman came up at the end of the night, and he said, I was going to leave, but then you guys went into Brick House. I think we jammed on Brick House by the Commodores for about a half hour, but really playing funky. Yeah. And now you got 5 white guys from Brooklyn, all long hair, looking like rock and rollers, but we could play funk. We were all into Motown as much as we were into the rock.
Right.
So he offered us he said he had a little independent label, and could we write a disco song? And then we just looked at each other and said, yeah, we could write a disco song. He took us into the studio. We wrote a disco song, what we thought was disco, but it was a little heavier. It took off in Canada, and then he came back to us and said, let's do another 12-inch single, which we did. And John Jellybean Benitez, the famous John DJ, that was his first record that he mixed, and that was our first real record. And Butch Jones, my engineer to this day, he engineered that record. So that's how we met. He did Madonna's first record. He did Talking Heads. He did a lot of people. So that record took off, and all of a sudden, it was Dancing Freestyle was the first single. It came out. It was number 2 on the dance station here for 8 weeks. Wow! And he said, let's do an album. And we said, okay. So now all of a sudden we were a so-called disco band. And they wouldn't let us put our picture on the cover because everyone thought that we were an African-American group. So we loved that. So we went for it. And then the album came out. We had another top 10 record. And then we took off. We started touring. And then all of a sudden everything was happening. We were playing Life of a Rock Star. Right. Limousines, flying, doing the whole thing, destroying hotel rooms, even though we were supposed to be, a disco band,
That's funny. Play that.
We still had long hair and looked like a rock band. So it gave us a little bit of an edge.
Yeah. You guys sound like you were the inspiration for Play That Funky Music, White Boy.
Well, I got it. That's a great story because Rob Parisi from Wild Cherry, who wrote that song, is a very good friend. And I remember my singer, we had a song called Play That Funky Music. And of course, we liked it because funky sounded like you were saying
the F word. Yeah.
Exactly. So we had a song called Funky Party. And we used to play it at the block parties to try it out. And we were going to record that song. And I remember Frankie, my lead singer, we used to call him Deke. He came down the studio that day and he goes, you guys are never going to believe this. Listen to this. It's us. And he put it on the turntable. Back then, that was the only way. Yeah. And we heard Play That Funky Music. And we were like, oh, my God, that's our life.
Yeah.
And,
no kidding.
And now, all these years later, Rob actually played on one of our songs. a couple of years ago when we released our anniversary album, which was pretty ironic, but that song is one of the greatest songs ever written.
Yeah, absolutely. But, inspiration always comes from somewhere. One of my dear girlfriends, a sister from another mister, Pamela DeBar, every time I hear the Tom Petty song, she's a good girl, loves God and Elvis, down Ventura Boulevard. She's from Reseda. She lives in Reseda. I mean, it has to be about Pamela. It just has to be. You know?
A lot of songs were written about Pamela.
Yeah, oh yeah, she's a fabulous gal. She just had she's 77. She just had the biggest birthday bash ever. She's gorgeous.
I'm telling you, I forget sometimes about age because I don't let age affect me, and I forget about age, but God bless.
Yeah, no, she's great. Well, so when you got this first record deal and the 12-inch single out, what was it like the first time you heard yourself on the radio? Do you remember where you were?
Oh yeah, we were at Jimmy Mayer. We were in his house because we had got the word that they might play it that night. So we all went over to Jimmy's house, a whole bunch of us with all our girlfriends and friends and everybody, and we sat around, the big record player, and the radio was on, and it was exactly why I love that movie, That Thing You Do, which every musician can relate to, because when it came on, it was just, we were jumping up and down. We were just ecstatic that we were on the radio. So of course we thought we made it, we're on the radio. So, we thought we made it. Yeah. Little did we know that we signed away all our rights, and
here we go again.
And down the line we had problems with publishing but when at that time I was 20 years old, so it didn't faze me. It didn't faze any of us really, because we figured someone was looking out for us. But as I just interviewed Ringo recently, we talk about the business, and he says a great line. He says, when I say about being in the business, he said, well, you'd like to think, the only advice is you'd like to think that you're going to have a manager or somebody looking after you, but that's still not the case.
No. Well, and I think in Brian Epstein's defense, he was as young as the Beatles. He wasn't much older than them. He didn't have any experience, and there wasn't really a music industry back then. And they, still to this day, with some of the younger artists we deal with, they get offered a deal, and there's still 5% held back for breakage from when records were made of Bakelite and they used to crack when they were delivered over the cobbled streets. Right. And the record companies still bake that into the contract, thinking that nobody's going to find it, Right. So it's
you did.
Yeah, well, I did. What I did when I was signed to BMG as an artist, the big mean Germans, out of Munich. And so I said, when the contract came, they said, oh, would you like a version in English? I'm like, no, that's okay. And I signed it. And then when I wanted to get out of the contract, I said, well, I didn't understand what I was signing because I don't speak German. So, that's another way to get out of these things.
It was.
So, back in the day.
Yeah.
Well, and then when later on in years, we heard stories, and then it became a saying like, if you didn't get ripped off, that means you didn't do anything in the business.
Exactly. You never made it.
Yeah, you're only as good as how badly you got screwed, right?
Yeah, that's
and then when the Beatles, when we found out, let's face it, that Capitol was, holding money back and saying, well, you only sold 10 million records, which is a lot of records, but meanwhile they sold 25 million. Right. It's like nobody paid attention to any of that.
Well, and there was no forensic accounting and no internet, no spreadsheets and no nothing. It was a bloke with a pencil and a visor, right?
Right. And musicians, we just want to play. We just want to make music. So the business end of it, I always said growing up, well, I'm not a businessman. Then I realized as I got older and I started having to pay attention to the business, I am a businessman, but I don't want to be.
Yeah, I know. No, it's that left brain, right brain thing for sure.
Now, I'll tell you what, you played at clubs, prominent places, didn't you? Like Studio 54 and Roseland.
Yeah, that was a great, hanging out in those days. this is why I still get along with some of the younger generation, because they're fascinated. They want to hear stories
Yeah.
about Studio 54 and,
Yes.
hanging out at Studio 54 and being downstairs in rooms that you didn't even know how to get out of sometimes. And it was a great way for me. That was my college, because I was, I should have been going to school. And in the middle of high school, I actually left because I was already on the road, and all my teachers, they were proud of me that I was on the radio and things were happening. So they said to me, now go, you can always go back to school. So that's what I did. I took off, and I my parents were concerned. My dad was very concerned. Unfortunately, he passed away just as the band was starting to break, but he did get to hear us on the radio. I could picture him sitting in our kitchen when at midnight we had a song called Midnight Energy. So at midnight they would play it, and I remember him in the studio, and he saw the album cover right a month before he passed. So in his eyes, I guess he thought I made it. Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely.
So is it true that the founder Steve of Studio 54 used to hire people to stand in line to make the place look like it was more popular than it was? I mean, the club would be.
Absolutely. I don't know if it's 100% true. It's like the rumor that Brian Epstein bought the first 10,000 copies of the Beatle record to get it on the charts. I mean, people back in the day, a lot of people did things like that, but no one has ever absolutely proved it. No. But Steve did have, he did have people out there. Sometimes, I'm more friends with Ian, who I saw last year at an event. Ian was pretty much totally different personality from Steve, and thank God, because you need that yin yang, and who's in charge of the business and who's going to be the the party animal. But Steve, when he was picking out those people, he had people that he would yell at and say, "You're not getting in." And I think he knew those people. I think some of those people were, it became a big phenomenon. That's what made the club so big. It's like, let's see if we could get into Studio 54.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's just
big challenge,
smart marketing, though.
Yeah.
No, and also there was a lot of celebrities. So you know what it's like. If celebrities want to have a place that they can go and be amongst themselves without people trying to take pictures, people trying to
glom onto them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what, you were amongst the earliest drummers to combine acoustics and with real electronic drums in the US studio work. What brought that all about?
That happened, I get asked that question all the time, and I always say I have to find out who the drummer was, and for some reason I just don't know. But I was always into different sounds and trying some different things, because playing the drums, drums are great, and I love the drums, but I like the electronic sound. When I first heard a couple of guys using them, Jimmy Braylauer, he was like the master back in the day, who did a lot of that work. Even Jeff Porcaro, people didn't know what that weird sound was that he was getting. And then people were using the organ rhythm box, which kind of later developed into a drum machine. But what had happened with me was, when the drum machine came out, I embraced it. All the drummers, everybody got scared, no matter who they were, that we were going to be replaced. Like AI now, we're going to be replaced. So I looked at it as a good thing, because I always liked playing along either with another drummer or a percussion player, or vice versa. So when the drum machine came out, I embraced it right away. And even before the drum machine, Frankie Deek again, he used to do sounds. He would go, which was a backward cymbal. He'd go on top of my snare drum. So we started developing like different kind of sounds. And then when Syndrums came out, I got Syndrums right away, and I used them on the Mantus stuff. And there was only, I think, Ring My Bell was out at the time with that sound. There was only 1 or 2 records out with that sound, but I really used it as, instead of using tom-toms, I used that syndrome sound, that boom, 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 boom. So it became like a little bit of a trademark, and the Mantus sound.
Yeah.
So when the drum machine came out, I embraced it. I loved it because it taught me to be a songwriter. And I would program just a basic beat. And then instead of having to sit behind the drums, like if you watch Get Back with Ringo, poor Ringo, he's sitting there and he was like a human drum machine. Everybody was figuring out the song, and he was, he would play, he would play. When the drum machine came out, I thought it was great that I could just program a beat so everybody had the time, and then get into the room with everybody writing the song, and then contribute to writing the song.
Great.
And
Great
then
idea.
put my drums on or program the drum machine. I learned how to program the drum machine.
Yeah.
Then Simmons drums came out, and I didn't know about Simmons. I went to see the Thompson twins because I was very into the whole, by now it's like early 80s.
Right.
I was very into the whole British, always from day one, British music. And then when that whole scene came out with the Thompson twins and ABC, I went to see the Thompson twins, and I saw this drummer playing this drum kit that looked different, but it sounded like a drum machine because it was Simmons. So I did everything I could to find out and I went to Manny's on 48th Street, and they ordered me a set, and I could have bought a car at that time, and I did everything I could. I begged my mom to help me, and
Oh, funny.
and I bought that kit, and I was one of the first ones in the state to have that Simmons kit. So at one point, I started to get hired to do dance music because I was known in that field. So I got hired. Butch was doing a lot of dance records. He would say, somebody needs you to come in, do some tom-tom overdubs. So I started playing Simmons on all these. And because I had them, I would rent them out, even if it wasn't for my session.
That's smart.
Yeah.
That's
So
really smart.
it really, I embraced it. I really loved it. And then when I did the Debbie Gibson record,
That was going to be my next question. You played on her 1987 album Out of the Blue, which included Only in My Dreams and Shake Your Love, and got a triple platinum RAAA award. And you were just with her recently at her book launch. But so how did you get hooked up with Debbie Gibson? Because of the drum sound, or?
No, that was Fred Zaw, who was he was Madonna's main keyboard player.
Okay.
In all her early records, some of those early records is only her and Fred. He programmed all the keyboards or played the keyboards, and then Butch engineered her first record, and Fred and Butch were friends, and then Fred became a producer at one point, and he was one of the first ones to have like a home studio, but a major home studio. So he had Madonna down there, and he had a bunch of people.
Well, hopefully he'll come back. Isn't this fascinating?
Are you back?
Okay, I think you're back.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. So you were saying, and he was one of the first ones.
So Fred Zaw. So I became part of his like A team with Ira Siegel, Bashiri Johnson, a couple of Jeff Smith played the sax on that record, who I recently haven't seen in like 20 years, and he just recently we did a show together.
Oh, great.
Wow.
So we were talking about the Debbie Gibson record, because I had just turned 30 and Debbie had just turned 15 when we did that record.
I was a huge fan of Debbie
Yeah,
Gibson.
she's
Still am.
great.
Oh, everybody. She was, and to this day, I'm so proud of her. That's why I wanted to surprise her last week at her book launch, because I wanted to surprise her. I kept in touch over the years, and the last time I saw her was a few years ago, but I wanted to surprise her. So that night when I went back after it was over to surprise her, she was like, "Oh, why didn't you tell me you were here? I would have gave you a shout out." But I was like, "No, it's not about me. It's about you." So
nice.
Great. She's
Yeah.
always
we had a nice time.
She's always been such a class act, because a lot of those pop girls were just signed because they were kind of sleazy and trashy and whatever, but she always seemed like a real class act to me.
Oh, absolutely. And she was young, and she was, she was sweet. And the main thing was she wrote all her own songs. I mean, she knew exactly how she wanted those records to sound. Yeah. So when she was in the studio, of course, mom and dad was always there, and then her mom went on to manage her later on. I was very close to her mom, and sadly, she passed away a few years ago. And so with the Debbie Gibson record, I had my Simmons kit, and I had a program in there with this like weird sound with that kind of sound that I was using on one of my tracks, but I hadn't recorded it yet. So I said, "Oh, let me try this for this." And then as soon as I went into that beginning part with the drums, everybody was like, "That's it. That's it. That's it."
Nice.
Those moments are indescribable, aren't they? When you just hit on a, when like Klaus Vormann plays the bass intro on You're So Vain, he was just messing around.
Exactly.
And, they wouldn't be the same song without Klaus. He didn't even know they were recording. He was just sitting there fiddling about with his bass, and they're like, "Wait, stop. What was that? Do that again."
I love that you know that, because that happens all the time. And another thing was Russ Teineman produced Stevie Winwood back in the High Life. J.R. Robinson was just fooling around, hitting the rim and doing this thing. And Jimmy Braylow had programmed the drums. So he was just kind of like waiting and hit. And then everybody said, "What is that? Do that again." And he was like, do what? This is why the great engineers always hit, like Butch. He used to hit record, and we didn't even know recording was starting already.
That's one of our dear friends and clients who mixed and engineered some of Martin's music. The Geist music project is called Nico Bolas, and he's been Neil Young's partner for 1,000 years. I talked to Nico yesterday. He's recording in Nashville right now. And he said, when you hear Neil Young's truck pull in the gravel on the parkway in the studio, hit record, because you just don't, you don't know what you're going to get. And moreover, you don't know what you're going to miss.
And I say this all the time when we speak about this topic, the younger generation, this is what's missing in music. People are not together. We call those happy mistakes in the studio.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic happens, because when you're sending tracks back and forth, yes, it is a good thing because it's a tool. And if somebody's in the UK and you want a track and you need somebody to do something, you send a file back and forth. But this is why I love Nashville, because the recording studios in Nashville, everybody still records together like back in the day. Right. And you cannot, there's just something about creating magic when you have other people in the room. You play off of other people. Somebody else gives you a better idea because they enhance the idea you already had. Yeah. And the younger generation doesn't understand that. So, and unfortunately, they can't do it because they're not used to doing it that way. So you got to have the best musicians be able to cut that track in 1 or 2 takes. But nobody's got budgets anymore for that. And that's what's missing in music these days.
Well, I always like, our regular viewers know I'm a big foodie, and we manage a bunch of chefs and do PR for chefs and restaurants and what have you. And to me, the analogies between food and music are very similar. And in Nashville, you've got a bunch of people in a studio, and it's inclusive because even if you don't read dots, they have what they call the 1-4-5 system, right? So if and they say it's 1-4-5 in the key of D flat or C or whatever. So the first chord is C, and the fourth would be F, and the fifth would be G, right? So you don't even need to understand that. That's the first thing. That's like being in a kitchen where everybody has to pull together from the dishwasher and the potato peeler all the way up to the head chef, right?
Great way to put it.
Yeah, and then you have the ingredients, but then there's that little sprinkle, the chef's kiss, they would call it, of what happens organically between brains, ears, vibrations, musicians. And I swear to God, some of the studios, the love comes out the walls. We had John Carter Cash on as part of the String Revolution last week, and he's coming on again in the end of October. And he owns the Cash Cabin, which is his dad Johnny Cash's old studio. And the music just oozes, the groove oozes out of the walls. The wood is part of I know I sound like an old Native American hippie, but it's just, you cannot get the same thing when you ship somebody a track and they return you an MP3 via Dropbox. It's more like frozen food.
Yeah. Exactly. That's a great way. Actually, eventually I want to have you two on my show
I'd
because
love
Love
to.
to.
I'm
Thank
doing
you.
it hasn't been announced yet, but I'm putting together a new show with a friend of mine, Shelley Stelmack. She's very popular doing red carpet events and
Great.
TV, and she's like she looks
Congratulations.
like she belongs in California, and she's never been in California, but she's here on the East Coast, and she does very well. So she came to me with an idea about starting something that she does fashion and art and
Yeah.
actors and actresses, and I do music. So we said, let's do something where we could do something together, and we're
Yeah,
going to call it the Beat and the Buzz. And the
that's
first
great.
person that we actually filmed, because we want to get a few filmings under our belt, was Andy Hilfiger, Tommy's
Oh,
Hilfiger's
Oh, yeah.
brother, who just launched a whole big line during Fashion Week. So
fantastic.
you guys would be great to talk about the food and music and
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
Thank you.
What was it? Some Liverpool comedian once said, "If music be the food of love, give us a tune on your jam butty."
that's great. Jam buddy.
That's funny. So, speaking of Scousers,
Yeah. How did you meet Ringo?
I met Ringo probably about it was before Modern Drummer. I met him the first time when he was a guest on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, yeah.
Um, he was on that night. Billy Crystal. That was the period because it was early '80s, mid '80s. Because my girlfriend at the time, she was a big shot at MTV, and MTV, of course, was new and had just started. And she surprised me by bringing me to Saturday Night Live because Ringo was on that night. And afterwards, we watched it from a private room, and then afterwards, we all went backstage. And I only tell this once in a while, and I said it to Ringo one time, and it's like, now that he's a friend, I feel a little bit more comfortable because I know him for so long now. And it took, what it's like. It takes a long time to get close to somebody because
oh, of course.
you know and I
Yeah.
never asked for anything. I never, we just organically became friends over it. For the longest time, I think for the first 10 years, he didn't even know my name. He would call me, he knew my face. He would point and he would say Mr. Rock and Roll or Fancy Hair, because I used to have really long hair. And then finally, we got to really know each other through Elizabeth Freud. But
Oh, yeah.
the first time when I met him backstage, him and Barbara were backstage. He was, everybody wanted to talk to him, and I just
Cool.
wanted to shake his hand and say thank you for everything, and which I did. But as I was shaking his hand, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, wow.
So I'm shaking his hand and I'm thanking him, but I'm looking at Jamie Lee Curtis because I didn't expect to see Jamie Lee Curtis.
Random.
So I said hello to him and Barbara. We shook hands. I said, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you for everything. And then, of course, everybody, he went right out. And I tell him this all the time. I was looking at Jamie Lee Curtis because Jamie was at that time dating David Guest.
That's right, from Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap now, which is a nice, that's back out. So that's why she was backstage. So I always tease him, I say, yeah, I go, yeah, it was nice meeting you, but there was Jamie Lee Curtis, and I never even went over to Jamie Lee Curtis, but it was like, wow, that's cool. There's Jamie Lee Curtis. So that was the first time. And then I went to a press conference. I was invited to one of his press conferences when he was starting the All-Stars. And David Fishoff at the time was in charge of that. And David took a liking to me or something. I don't know why.
Come on.
And,
I do.
We became friends, and then he started calling me anytime Ringo was doing something to get publicity in Modern Drummer or to promote whatever what Ringo was doing, which of course we always did anyway.
Right.
And little by little, he finally introduced me the first time that formally met him was with Sheila E. And I knew Sheila, and that's the first tour that he was on. And we joked a little bit. He met me. He knew I was from Modern Drummer. And the first thing I said to him, I said, it's all your fault that I'm a musician and I'm a drummer. And he goes, "Are you any good?" So I go, now I had already played and had the hit records and played, but I didn't get into the whole. I just said to him, "Yeah, I guess I'm pretty good. I have songs on the radio, and I toured. I was in a band, had a couple of records." He goes, "Well, then I did my job."
Yeah, that sounds very, very Richie.
And then I asked, "Can we take a photo?" And he said, "Of course." And then we took a photo, and then Sheila, we all took photos, and that was it. And then he was gone. That was his thing. And then I met him a couple of times after that. He'd say hello, but he wouldn't know my name because he meets so many people.
10,000
And then he'd be gone. And then little by little, we just kind of became friends. And then I was invited to his 70th birthday party.
Wow. That's 13 or 14 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah, at the Hard Rock in New York. And I'm at the party in the afternoon. And he was playing Radio City that night. And I'm at the party in the afternoon, and it was only family and friends from the All-Stars. And I'm looking at myself, and I wasn't invited through Modern Drummer. I was just invited. And I'm
nice.
looking around, and it's like the Talking Heads song. How did I get here? It's like I'm saying to my wife at the time, I'm saying, "Wow, this is unbelievable. This is like unbelievable." So I saw him. I went up. I kissed him, and his beard was pinchy. So I said to him, "Why don't you shave that thing? It's so pinchy." He goes, so you don't kiss me. I don't want you to enjoy it." That's what he said to me. And then we just from that day on, I was invited to all his birthdays, and then Jules Follett, who runs the sessions, became a big sponsor. And we've been celebrating his birthday. We even celebrated in Italy one time, only by chance. We both just happened to be there. He didn't know I was going to be there.
Wow.
I didn't know that he was going to be there at that time until a week before I was going to Italy. So, and now I just celebrated his 85th, which was, God bless him. I mean, he just looks younger and younger every year.
He looks amazing. Yeah, and Andrew's going to be 96 next month after next in November.
Oh my God! God bless you.
I know, right?
Amazing.
And it's
clean your glasses.
Yeah.
Oh my God! No, I just had cataract surgery. I could see well.
But what I was going to tell you when you were mentioning Jamie Lee Curtis before is that she and her husband, Christopher Guest.
Oh, Christopher Guest, right? I said David.
Right.
Christopher.
Yeah. They live in Pacific Palisades, or they used to. I don't know what became of their house. I hope it's okay in the fires. But our friend Kevin Stouffer Smith moved into a little rental next door, and it was in the days before marijuana was legal in California, and he was he'd go outside and he'd try and find a place in his yard. It was moving day, and we had the van there, and I was helping him get his little Apple computer set up and whatever. And halfway through the afternoon, he steps outside to smoke a J, and we're thinking, well, who are the next door neighbors? Are they going to call the police? Because I don't smoke pot, but everybody helping Kevin move did. And so there's this huge cloud of, pot smoke going up in the back garden. And we hear, hello, because the front door was open. We hear this voice. And Kevin thought, oh my God, it's the neighbors come to complain about the smell, or somebody to say the police are on the way, And God love her, it was Jamie Lee Curtis with a welcome neighbor basket. She'd seen the van in the morning. She'd baked oatmeal cookies and muffins, and the basket had a pint of milk, some empty ice trays to make ice, 2 toilet rolls, a couple of light bulbs, and some of her homemade oatmeal cookies and muffins, and their phone number on a yellow sticky. And she said, "Hi, my name's Jamie. My husband and Christopher and I live next door. If you need anything in the neighborhood, just let me know." Is that the sweetest thing?
That is, I love people like that.
Yeah. It's
that is so beautiful. That is amazing.
Yeah, no, she's been absolutely another class act. But look at her parents, Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, she comes from royalty. Of course, she's going to be an absolute queen, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's,
No,
yeah.
and she's one of the people that could have a little bit of an air or an attitude.
Yeah,
And those are the
absolutely.
people,
Yeah.
and those are the people mostly that don't. It's the people that I think are not confident in themselves that
Yeah.
need that extra ego boost or something. But
Yeah.
over the years, I never had patience for that, so I just avoid those people. If growing up Italian, the biggest thing was respect.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
if I don't care who you are, I don't care how much money you have, I don't care how famous you are. If you don't respect people, then I don't need you around me. I don't want to
No.
be around you.
Yeah.
No, we have no time for arseholes, as we like to say. It's
Yeah.
just,
Exactly. I was going to say something, but I didn't know if I could curse on here.
So you can say arseholes and you can say bullshit if you want
you
to.
can say all of the all of the
Yeah,
above.
I
And
could.
all- yeah.
One thing was good growing up in Brooklyn is you see through bullshit very quickly.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh, yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about your inventive side of your brain. You invented a specialty flat drumstick called slappers,
Oh, yeah.
which means something completely different in
Oh,
Liverpool.
very-
I found that out later
You
on.
never call a woman a slapper.
No.
Oh, no.
And it's designed to create different sounds on drums and cymbals like bells, blocks, bongos,
Yeah.
timbales, etc. How on earth did you come up with that idea?
Well, believe it or not, that gave me ulcers because I never wanted to be a drumstick manufacturer, and I didn't think about what would go into making them. So between the patent and trying to have them custom made, and then I was using exotic wood because they were beautiful. It literally gave me ulcers because it cost a fortune, and it just. At one point, I was like, "Yeah, I don't want to do this." And then I almost made a deal with LP. They were going to put handles on, and they even made some copies. And then Martin Cohen at the time, who invented a lot of percussion instruments and started LP, there was a little bit of a problem with him and his son, typical family drama. His son was going to marry someone in Taiwan and she wasn't accepted into the family. So I was ready to sign a deal with them because the son was in it, and then the son disappears. Martin kind of didn't want to have anything to do with his son, so my whole thing just like went out the window.
Well, never
And then at that point, I didn't want to do it. But the way I came up with it was, I was helping my buddy John Kaz in my band. He passed away a couple of years ago. He was my bass player since we were kids. He was the bass player in Mantus, and his parents had a Venetian blind store and in Brooklyn. And when we weren't on the road, we would help out in the store with his mom and dad, and it was a very good business. And there was shade sticks, the shades that go at the bottom of the shades. So we used to have to cut them and slide them in and put them in the bottom. So one time, two of them just happened to be like the size of drumsticks, and I just started like a typical drummer, just started banging on everything and playing around with them, and they felt so good, and they would get a sound like a slap sound, which is where slappers came from. So long story short, I took a box of them home, I cut them up, I kept them in my stick bag, and everybody used to come over and they used to say, "Wow, this is really cool. This is really cool." So I went to a good buddy, Vinny Federa. And if that name sounds familiar to people, Federa guitars, Federa basses is one of the most famous basses in the world these days. I grew up with Vinny Federa, so
Vinny Federa, who might just be Italian. Wild guess.
Might be what?
Might just be an Italian. Just throwing that out there as a wild guess.
Yes. And he had a business. He started building guitars for another company, and then he started his own business. Now, to this day, they are probably one of the most famous bass makers in the world.
Wow.
So he was helping me out, making the sticks for me with the exotic wood, but I knew nothing about any of that. So I would buy these huge sheets of exotic wood, and one of them was zebra wood, which looked beautiful on the sticks with these stripes, but you would order them in planks, and then one or two planks wouldn't have any lines, so it wouldn't look like zebra wood. So I was like, oh my God, this is starting to cost way too much. And then I went to a couple of companies and they said, yeah, it's cool, but a lot of drummers are not going to get used to holding it flat. And that's why LP did the handles, which was a great idea. And it was more for percussion than drums, but I liked them on the drums.
Right.
So anyway, little by little, I had a bunch made and we started to sell them but it was just, the companies were telling me, in order for us to make these, everything is dowels, is round. You have to buy a machine, $150,000 machine,
Oh, yeah.
so we can make them flat. I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And, and I was still playing at the time. And, but it did put me in touch. That's how I met Jim Keltner.
Oh, okay.
Because I was at a Modern Drummer Festival, because we did the Modern Drummer Festival for over 20 years. I was the artist liaison before I even worked at Modern Drummer. And then Anton Fig was playing at the festival, and he said to me, Jim Keltner is looking for you. Can I give him your number? And I was like,
Hell yes.
First of all, yes. And why is and then I realized a couple of nights before that they were doing the Bob Dylan show. George Harrison was on that. Anton and Paul Schaefer and everybody were part of the house band. So Jim had heard about the Slappers, and Jim, as you know, loves all different kind of out of the box.
Yeah.
I mean, he used to play with knitting needles and stuff on a lot of records. So I got in touch with Jim. He gave me a great endorsement. He let me put him in an ad with the stick. And to this day, he only has 2 pairs left. And he always asks me, can I get any more from you? Is there any more? And he has ones with the handle, and he still uses them to this day. So he helped me a lot. And that's how I met Jim Keltner. And then I met other drummers who endorsed me and everything. But that was just like a phase that it cost too much money to do, and I did not want to be a drumstick maker.
But you've also done, on the philanthropic side of stuff too.
Yeah, tell us about your advisory board work in music education and artist empowerment, like Little Kids Rock.
And I also want to hear about Def Leppard's Rick Allen and his wife Lauren Monroe's Raven Drum Foundation, which raises awareness of healing through music with drum circles with many of the people that you're talking about today, and raising funds for veterans, first responders, and people suffering from trauma. I mean, it's really important that, music, especially the drumming percussive part, is such a tribal instinct going back to, caveman days and beyond, right? In all of us. It's a great therapy. And I'm so proud of you that you're involved with these organizations that are using it as therapy.
Well, thank you. And I'm grateful to all of these companies, because I don't have the monetary means to donate or give all this money away. So by me helping as much as I can is my way of giving back. So and I like to give back. So we'll go backwards. We'll start with Rick and Lauren. The Raven Drum Foundation, they started that foundation good 25 years ago. And of course, Rick suffering from PTSD for that horrible accident, and thank God that to this day that band stayed together and everything worked out. And Lauren was a big part in his recovery, because she's like a holistic healer and just so wonderful. And Rick I tease him all the time, I'm going to ruin his reputation, because when he's with Def Leppard and he's on stage, 100,000 people every night they're playing, and he is the sweetest person I think that I know. And
Pussycat of a rock star, huh?
Oh my God, no, he's not a rock star, even though he is. But it is just amazing. So they started this foundation to give back, and he started meeting a lot of people that lost limbs and veterans. And when they told me how many veterans a day commit suicide, and you don't even hear about it, it is heartbreaking. It is horrible. I mean, I could never go to war. Thank God I that's not something, I don't believe in it. It's just, it doesn't make any sense, because everybody that we went to war with, we're all friends now and we all live together. But now we still talk about war, and it's still, people want
It's too profitable for the big, industrial
That's the
complex.
problem. It all comes down to money, but
Yeah.
it's sad because it's human life and innocent people get hurt in the middle. But so he met all these people. So he started this foundation, him and Lauren, and they
Right.
did. And then I knew Rick for a lot of years, even before Modern Drummer, and I was fortunate to be friends with him and become close friends with him. And then when they came to me a couple of years ago and said, "Would you, can you help us out with a show? We're going to do a couple of shows," and I did a couple of shows for them in California. All I do was make phone calls and ask my friends if they could come.
Great.
But fortunately, I have friends like Jim Keltner and Denny Sywell who just put out a book.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know.
today I
Yeah.
think it comes out. Yeah.
Yes. And Todd Zuckerman from Styx and Fred Armisen. And I don't want to leave anybody out, but there's a lot of people because I know all the drummers. And we put together this circle that they do. And it blew my mind. I mean, it just totally blew my mind how I felt so peaceful and so like insightful about so many things. It was just so great. And then there was a woman there, and I'm going to get yelled at for forgetting her name, but she gave a speech, and she's very famous. She was on the news and everything, but I didn't know. But she made the speech. She was captured in Afghanistan and tortured and beat, and I mean,
Golly.
it was just horrible. And we were all looking at each other, trying to hold back tears. And I turned to Todd Zuckerman, who was next to me, and I said, "God, if we ever complain about anything ever again, because." And then afterwards, I went over to her, and because of the trauma, I didn't want to just. I wanted to hug her, but I didn't want to touch her.
I know.
And I said to her, "My God, you were so inspiring." And I said, "Do you mind if I give you a hug?" And she was like, "Oh, yes, of course." And we hugged, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So
that's the power of rhythm. It brings people together. It's healing. It's all of those things.
Yeah. No, music, we're finding out more and more. And Lauren is very, very into studying that for years about how important music and rhythm is to our bodies and minds and our soul.
Well, and if you look at the Indian chakras and a lot of Eastern meditation and the bowls and bells and ringing. When I was an artist I had a big career in Russia, Lithuania, Latvia, Armenia, Siberia, all of that stuff. And I went in 1988 to Armenia when it was still a Soviet country, and I performed 11 sold-out shows in Armenia, in Yerevan, and gave in a 23,000-seater basketball arena, and gave all of the money, unbeknownst to the Russian mafia, gave all of the money to the local earthquake relief fund because they just lost 40,000 people. And one of the things we did was the money is build a little building. It's a little hut, and it's the Ruth McCartney music room, and it's got drum kits and percussive instruments and tambourines and triangles, and the kids who lost their parents or their families could just go in there and bang the shit out of stuff to get the anger out and whatever. I've known what you're talking. I'd love to talk to Rick and Lauren
absolutely. Yeah, no, they would love you. And God bless you. You see, I didn't know that. I mean, we've known each other a little bit online and everything, but basically it's the first time we're meeting. And
which is unbelievable.
When I even though I'm on this side today, I still do research and look up some things because I like to know. But I feel like when we met for the first time 2 weeks ago, when we did a little say hello, I felt like I knew you.
Yes. Yeah. Well, again, it's back to that whole extended Beatles family. Once it's like the world becomes a never-ending Beatle fest, doesn't it? It's on, and we're all coming from a place of peace and love, and we just want to make the world a better place and wake up so the next generations can be safe in their beds at night and have a roof over their heads and food in their bellies. And I think that's the simplest, that's how we all live our lives in this house. And I think the ethos of the average Beatle fan is absolutely the same. And that's, I think, on a level that we connect because of, if you're a Beatle fan, that's all you really need to say because the core of everything else, of the belief system of that person.
Yes. And peace and love, as you said, like
Yeah.
as your stepbrother always said, the Beatles were always about peace and love. You know,
100%.
always.
They were the first, when they were on the way in February 1964, after doing the Ed Sullivan Show, they were going down through Washington to Miami, and they were on the train and they were going through contracts. And Brian was sort of taken aback, like, what? And John Lennon said to him, well, what? And he said, oh, do you realize that when we get down to Florida, they want to split the audience, white people on the right and black people on the left. And the band all just said, well, cancel the show. We're not doing it. It has to be integrated. Otherwise, we're not going on.
Exactly.
And, even those little stories trickled back to people like the Reverend Jesse Jackson. When he met Angie, he was like, oh, my God, your stepson, your family were part of helping the integration in the 60s.
Yeah, I was so happy that was really brought to everyone. I knew about that because, as you know, if you're a Beatle fan, you know every single thing.
Right.
Sometimes I'll ask Ringo something. He goes, I don't know, read a book. Read one of the books. It's probably in there.
Google it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was so happy that Ron Howard film brought that to everyone's attention because a lot of people did not know that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it was very brave of them and good of Brian.
And the Vietnam War, when John, he said, no, if we're going to keep going to America, we're going to speak about, how we feel about the Vietnam War.
Ooh,
and
look what a lot of trouble that made for him, poor guy.
I know.
Yeah,
I know. But you know what? Everybody, you can't, if you really believe in something and it's for the better, you have to keep fighting for it because otherwise people give up and then nothing gets done.
Well, and that's why the technology today is so great, like this Teaflix podcast that we do. We have some of the most fascinating people, and we're just always trying to spread the message of everybody has a story, everybody has trauma, everybody has hope. And for the most part, I know certainly all of our regular audience are all about peace and love. And so, that's the power of the podcast. Angie had a question.
Yeah, tell us about your podcast, Billy's Bubble. Where can we see it, and what kind of guests do you have?
Well, Billy's Bubble became like kind of like my brand. So that's like my brand, and everything goes under that brand. My podcast, I do a couple of live shows that I put together. So anything that I do with Billy's Bubble is really so that I pretty much could own it, number one. And then I'm fortunate to work with people who will let me have a platform to put some of these, because when I was at Modern Drummer, I was there for 25 years. Of course, I had a huge platform, which Ron Spagnati gave me that break, and he took me under his wing, and then he passed away 5 years later at 60 years old. He was like a father figure, and he passed from cancer after that. And then my intention was just to be at Modern Drummer for a little while because I still wanted to play and everything, but the studio scene started drying up. Right. Everything was, the world was changing. And I knew social media was going to be a big thing, but at Modern Drummer, the magazine was the most important thing because that's what made money, advertisers and everything. But I saw that shift starting to change. Right. So it became inevitable that eventually, if they didn't go a certain way, things were not going to stay the same. And, I always say, if you don't move with the times, then you just become a dinosaur. You could complain all you want.
That's right.
And sometimes I'll sound like me and Liberty DeVito, when he's on my Billy's Bubble show. We have this thing called, the Billy Joel drummer. We have a thing called...
Liberty just wrote the foreword to my next book called He Didn't Start the Fire. So
beautiful.
There you go. I'll tell you about that offline.
And so we have a thing where in the bubble we do a thing called "Hey, did you know?" And then we talk about, "Hey, you know who played on this record?" And we go back and talk about all these drummers that a lot of people wouldn't know and all these records that they played on. But we have this little thing that we do called Angry Old Man Rant, because we just started ranting about things, and then we looked at each other and we go, yeah, we're starting to sound old now. These how are we going to let the kids? How are the kids going to like us if we start sounding like old, grouchy old men? But you know what? They love it because that was the thing with me and him. People love like our angry, grouchy old man story. But if you don't move with the times,
that's right. Well,
you become a dinosaur.
Why, we do this live every Tuesday, which is like, live without the aid of a net. And we are trying to get Guinness recognition as the world's oldest weekly podcaster at 95 3/4.
My God, God bless you, because you look amazing.
Yeah, I know.
You should see me close up.
It's all spackle, smoke, and mirrors. I'll tell you what, mate. Well, this has just been delightful. So people can just Google Billy's Bubble and listen wherever they get their podcasts. And across the bottom, you'll see has been scrolling for the last almost an hour. Good grief. Where did that time go? You can go find Billy on Facebook and follow all of his links and everything there. And thank you. So I know how busy you are with the other stuff you got going on. So thank you for finding the time for us today. And our regular guests will know that we always have, Madam has a book out called Mrs. McCartney's Liverpool Limericks and Other Random Irish Haikus. So she always writes a guest limerick. So if you're sitting comfortably, I will let Madam count it in.
1, 2, 3.
Here's Billy, our famed Amendola, whose drumming could rock a gondola. From Gibson to Ringo, his rhythms still swing so. His legacy is a high roller. Ta-da!
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. I just, again, what a pleasure to get to know you more. And hopefully, if you get out to LA, we're right by LAX. And so,
I'm going to be there October 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Oh, good.
Okay. Well, that's the week after next.
Oh my God, that's right. Yes.
Shoot me a quick email, and
as a matter of fact, I can't. I'll speak to you after this about why I'm going out there, because it hasn't been announced yet, and then I could probably meet you where I'm going to be at the Sunset Marquee.
Okay, I think Julian's there at the moment, actually.
Yeah, he is. He's out there right now. I'm not sure if he's still going to. I hope he's there when I get out there. I love Julian.
Yeah, good kid. All right, Billy. Well, thank you folks for tuning in from all over the world. Literally, this will be up on YouTube later, and also McCartney.com, the McCartney Times. And we can't thank you enough for joining us today, Mr. Billy Amendola.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
We'll see you kids all of a sudden. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Teaflix, and check out Dr. Angie's books, Organic Teas and CBD at mrsmccartneysteas.com. Toodle pip.